Before we get into today's podcast episode, I have some exciting news. I'm hosting a free masterclass all about improving your kids' brain health, their mood, their sleep, and their behaviour. This is going to be especially valuable if you are struggling with behavioural or mood challenges in your kids. Things like defiance, angry outbursts, irritability, tantrums, meltdowns, issues with emotional regulation or impulse control. Or perhaps your child's been diagnosed with something like anxiety or ADHD or autism. Essentially, in this masterclass, we are going to be talking about, optimizing your kids' brain health, the simple things that you can do in relation to the food that they're eating, the environment they're living in, and lifestyle habits that can drastically improve brain health, mood, behaviour, and sleep in your children. I'd love to invite you to come along. Head on over to naturalsuperkids.com/MSB, mood, sleep, behaviour -masterclass to save your seat. You'll also find the link in the show notes. Welcome to the Natural Super Kids podcast, where you will discover practical strategies to inspire you to boost the health and nutrition of your kids. I'm Jessica Donovan, a qualified naturopath specialising in kids' health, and I want to make it as easy as possible for you to raise healthy and happy kids. Let's get into it. Hello, welcome back to the Natural Super Kids podcast. In today's episode, I want to dive into our approach when it comes to behavioural concerns and challenges in children. And I wanted to cover this topic because I don't think when kids are having behavioural challenges or concerns, whether they be things like defiance or angry outbursts or mood swings or, issues with impulse control or emotional regulation, tantrums, meltdowns, kids not listening, issues related to anger, which is really common. You don't often think of getting support from a naturopath. And I want to talk about why that is a good idea, and go through kind of what our approach is when it comes to these behavioural challenges in kids. And if you're listening to this in real time, we have a really exciting free masterclass coming up all about improving kids' mood, sleep, and behaviour. So, if you're listening to this later on, this information is still going to be really helpful to you. But yeah, if you're listening in July 2024, before the masterclass has happened, I would encourage you to sign up to, learn more about kids' mood, sleep, and behaviour, and 4 simple things that you can adjust in their morning routine that can make a really big difference when it comes to improving mood, sleep, and behaviour in kids. Now, first of all, I just want to really, recognize for parents that are struggling in these areas that it is really tricky. It can feel lonely. You can feel a lot of guilt and shame. Like, where did I go wrong? What have I done? You can think about, is this a reflection of my parenting? There can be all sorts of those thoughts that go through your mind. And I want you to know that you are definitely not alone, and this is not your fault. There are so many factors within our modern day diet, our modern day lifestyle, our modern day environment that are contributing to imbalances when it comes to our kids' brain health, when it comes to their neurotransmitters or brain chemicals that are negatively impacting their mood, their behaviour, their sleep. And I'm talking about things like the modern day diet, screens and technology, the fast-paced lifestyle that we live these days. The fact that our kids are spending way more time inside than they are outside, even compared to just say a generation ago. So there's a lot of factors that we're up against as modern day parents that are not really, doing our kids' mental health, their brain health, their mood, their behavior any favors. So I just want to sort of put that out there. And at the same time, there are things that we can do as parents and that can make changes in these areas that are, that will bring about more positive impact on our kids' mood, their behavior, their sleep. So I just want to acknowledge that it's not your fault. I've had some struggles with one of my kids' mental health and mood and behavior at times. And, I know that those thoughts have gone through my head, and especially with my knowledge as a naturopath, like, where have I gone wrong? What have I done here? But I think it's really tricky to navigate everything that we're navigating today. So I just want to sort of put that out there first. Now, when our kids are having challenges with behavior, when we're thinking about, the more common kind of avenues we might investigate, there's a couple of things that come to mind. One is to take our kids to see a psychologist, and this can be amazing if we can find the right psychologist. But I also just want to acknowledge that there are hugely long wait lists to see child psychologists. And so it can take a long time, it can take years, months to get in to see a child psychologist. I mean, the length of the wait lists to get into child psychologists, really is a reflection of the state of our kids' brain health, their mental health, their mood, and their behavior. So I know for me personally, when I was having struggles with one of my children, we were on a wait list to see a child psychologist. And when we finally got the appointment, I was very disappointed. I just don't think this particular lady was a good fit for us. A few things that she said in the appointment, just really threw me off and put me off seeing her again. So it can be really disappointing when we're kind of pinning all of our hopes on seeing this person and they're going to be able to solve our problems. And then we get there and it's a disappointing experience. That was certainly my experience. We had a much more positive experience just with a local counsellor, who was just a better fit for us, let's just say that. And then, the other avenue that parents might explore is medications for their kids. And these are on the rise. And as I always say, I think there's a time and a place for medications for sure. We do need to be aware that, a lot of medications that are used for kids' mood and behavior, and I'm talking about things like anxiety medications, antidepressants, medications that are commonly prescribed for kids with ADHD, for example. They do have side effects that we need to be aware of, and they're doing the way medications generally work is they're doing something for the body. And in this case, these sort of medications are changing the neurotransmitter levels in the body, or the brain chemical levels in the body, whether that be serotonin with something like an antidepressant, or whether it be dopamine when it comes to a lot of the common ADHD medications that are used. So this can be super helpful for a lot of kids and a lot of families and a lot of parents. There is definitely a time and a place for these medications. But I also want to just make a point of saying that, they're often not addressing, things holistically. They're not addressing all of the underlying causes and factors that might be going on. So if you are using medications for behavioural mood challenges in your kids, that's totally okay. But you want to also be looking at, some of these underlying factors that I'm going to be talking about today, and making sure that you're tweaking things like diet, lifestyle, environment, to optimize the way the body produces and utilizes and metabolizes, neurotransmitters and brain chemicals. And that can be done complementary to using medication. So And I know a lot of parents want to avoid using medications, or they've tried medications and they, don't like the side effects, or, the side effects outweigh the benefits that they might be getting for their child using that particular medication. So, child psychologists and medications, they're common. They definitely, they can definitely make a difference. They definitely have their place. But I want to kind of, I guess, dig a little bit deeper and look at some of those, really commonly underlying factors when it comes to behavioural and mood challenges in kids. So when it comes to our Natural Super Kids approach to behavioural challenges in kids, we are, number one, we are holistic. So we're looking at all of the different things at play. We're looking at a child's diet. We're looking at the environmental factors that a child is exposed to and their overall environment. We're looking at their lifestyle. How much active time are they having? How much outdoor time are they having? How much time are they spending on screens? What are their stress levels like? What's the pressure on them like from, school or extracurricular activities? We're looking at genetic factors. So there's so many things that are contributing to a child's mental health, their behaviour, their mood, their sleep, that if we're not looking holistically, we can really, we can easily miss some of these important factors. Another thing that's really important to us is that we share information that is practical, that is easy to implement. Our aim is always to have the busy parent in mind. We know that you have a lot going on in your life, and looking at your child's behavioural challenges is only one little piece of the puzzle in terms of everything that you are juggling. So we aim to make our information and our strategies easy to implement, practical, and we're also very big on making sure that the information we share is backed by research. We're all qualified practitioners here at Natural Super Kids, so we are not just mums sharing our unique or our personal stories is what I'm trying to say. And I see that a lot online, and this can be really helpful, to I guess hear someone else's story. But I think where it can get a little bit dangerous is where people are taking on board advice from someone who isn't qualified, who doesn't have the experience or the knowledge, because everyone needs to be treated differently. So be careful where you are getting your information. I think it's great if you're inspired, by someone, but make sure the information that you are, utilizing when it comes to your child's health is reputable, and it is coming from research and qualified practitioners, as opposed to just someone sharing well-meaning advice online. Hopefully that makes sense. So what I want you to know when it comes to behaviour is essentially we're talking about brain health. And brain health is something we want to think about as ongoing. We don't just get to a point where our kid's brain is healthy or our brain is healthy and we don't have to think about it anymore. So we know that brain health is a constant work in progress, even as we have a fully developed brain. So what a lot of people don't realize is that the brain is not fully developed until 25 years old. And this tells us why, this explains a lot as to why teenagers and people in their early 20s can, maybe have, make impulsive decisions, or, be risk takers, or, make I'm trying to be careful with my wording here, but we all know, those kind of traits that teenagers are famous for, not thinking logically before they act. And so, it's important to understand that brains are not fully developed until around about 25 years old. And even after that, they're constantly changing. So brain health is something we want to be thinking about all the way through our lives. Our brain is a very important organ. And we're talking specifically about mood and behavior here. And, an unhealthy brain is not going to create a happy, well-balanced person. So brain health is something we want to be thinking about. And another thing I want you to know about the brain is that it's nutrient hungry. The brain consumes a lot of nutrients and a lot of calories, and there's certain nutrients that are really important for brain health. And I'm going to be going into detail of those in my upcoming masterclass on mood, sleep, and behavior. So if you're not signed up for that, make sure you do sign up. But yeah, there's lots of nutrients that are involved in a healthy brain. And the other thing that we need to know is the brain has a high affinity for toxins and chemicals. So we do need to be really careful in terms of the things that our kids are potentially exposed to. And unfortunately, exposure to toxins and chemicals and our kids' exposure to toxins and chemicals is increasing just because there's more of these things within the world. But there is also things that we can do to reduce that exposure to chemicals and toxins as well. So I'm talking about things like heavy metals, like lead, for example, has a huge impact on brain health and is a heavy metal that kids are commonly exposed to. Things like PCBs and PCPs and food additives, the plastic chemicals. There's all sorts of things within our environment that can affect the brain, both brain development and brain function. So the nutrient hungry part, really links to diet. This fact that brains have a high affinity to toxins and chemicals, that really links to the fact we need to be very careful what our kids are exposed to environmentally and do all that we can to minimize exposure to dangerous toxins and chemicals that may have a negative impact on our kids' brain. And the reason that I'm bringing these things up is to give you a better understanding as to why we have this holistic approach when it comes to behavior. Changing our kids' behavior to be more positive is more than just a new parenting strategy or, a medication that might help. And as I said, these definitely have their place. But what about diet? What about environment? What about lifestyle? Of course, screens and technology are having a huge impact on our children's brains and our adult brains as well. And, when we think about the timeline of history, it's a very short amount of time that we've had this sort of exposure to technology and to screens. And we know that they are negatively affecting our kids' mental health, their mood, and their behavior. I mean, it's quite obvious when you take a screen away from a young child, usually behavior is not not very positive, and there's a whole range of reasons for that. But I'm not saying taking screens away from kids is the answer to behavioral challenges. It's definitely not as simple as that. But we want to be looking at behavior and brain health holistically. I want to talk a little bit about neuroinflammation because this is such a fascinating area that I've been doing quite a bit of research and reading in over the past 12 to 18 months. And neuroinflammation is basically inflammation of the brain and the nervous system. And we know that our daily habits determine our levels of neuroinflammation. We know healthy habits can reduce that neuroinflammation, making the brain healthier. And unhealthy habits, we're talking about things like, junk food and not moving our body, sedentary lifestyle, lots of screen time. These things can increase neuroinflammation. So increase inflammation of the brain and nervous system. And What we also know is neuroinflammation is a significant factor when it comes to brain disease later on in life. So things like dementia and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. And we also know that neuroinflammation is a significant factor in mental health issues such as depression and schizophrenia and anxiety. And neuroinflammation, we have the power to change that. We have the power to change our daily habits and our kids' daily habits to either, increase or decrease that neuroinflammation. And things like those, brain diseases, dementia, Alzheimer's that are on the rise, they don't develop overnight. And so I remember reading an article from a brain health expert that talks about, that a lot of the people that develop these conditions later on in life, of course, as well, there's genetic factors. I'm definitely acknowledging that. But, a lot of the habits, the daily habits that they had, even in their 30s, 40s, 50s, contributed over time to them developing dementia and Alzheimer's in their 70s or 80s. And so I think that's really empowering that we can make changes to our daily habits to improve our brain health, to reduce that neuroinflammation. And we can start those healthier habits, in our kids' lives as well. And so, when our kids' behavior and mood is, perhaps not ideal, we can think about what can we change to start to reduce these levels of neuroinflammation? What can we do to start nourishing the nutrient-hungry brain? What can we do to start reducing the toxins and chemicals that could be negatively impacting our kids' brain and behavior? And so I want this to be empowering for you. And so I just really wanted to explain some of the the reasons that we do things the way that we do, and explain our, process and approach to behavioural challenges to brain health in kids generally. As I said, I am running a free masterclass, if you're listening to this in real time, in July 2024. The link to sign up is in the show notes, and I'm going to be, sharing some real practical, easy to implement strategies so that you can make improvements to daily habits that will improve brain health, reduce neuroinflammation, and in a day-to-day level, start to improve your kids' behavioural challenges, mood swings and sleep issues. So I would love to see you there. And I hope this information has been really helpful and helped you to see your kids' behavioural challenges and what you can do about those behavioural challenges in a different light. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Head on over to our website, naturalsuperkids.com, for the show notes for this episode, as well as a whole heap of inspiration to help you raise healthy and happy kids. I'll see you next week. Before you go, don't forget to sign up for my free upcoming masterclass, 4 simple adjustments you can make to your child's morning routine to dramatically improve their mood, sleep, and behavior. We're going to be talking about things like diet and nutrition and environment and lifestyle, and how these can impact our kids' brain health, their neurotransmitters, and we can make choices to shift some of these things in very simple ways to have a positive impact on our kids' mood, sleep, and behavior. You'll get so much value out of this masterclass. I can't wait to see you there. Head on over to naturalsuperkids.com/M MSB for mood, sleep, behaviour dash masterclass to save your seat. You'll also find the link in the show notes.